the true value from AI comes from decision compression, that we can delegate and compress decisions through our processes and workflows.
AI will never be accountable. It's always going to be the people, the professionals.
The challenge for the future will be fundamentally that they can judge and define what is valuable, what is right, or what is wrong.
Hello, my name is Jesper Schleimann, and I'm the head of business AI at SAP in the EMEA region. And this is AI Voices. Today, I'm joined by Ignacio Bonetto, manager of emerging technologies at Diamond Shipyards, as well as Ronald Schippers, the managing director of VNSG, the SAP user group in the Netherlands. Thank you so much for joining us.
Pleasure.
So let's kick it off with a little bit of grounding and focusing on the present state of where we are on AI. I want to explore some of the biggest changes that you've experienced in the past 18 to 24 months inside the landscape here in the Netherlands, as well as in Diamond Shipyards. So I want to start a little bit with rewinding the clock. What was the conversation like? Kind of put us in the room and the leadership teams at that point around AI and in the context of shipbuilding and engineering.
Well, let's think about 2 years ago. What we noticed 2 years ago that AI was not really embedded in the organization. AI was something that was happening in the society. It was really this bottom-up approach. A lot of our colleagues were experimenting on the private line. They were checking on emails drafting. They were checking on or using ChatGPT. But soon enough, we noticed a turning point, and the turning point was, while you might associate shipbuilding with boats, we have a lot of processes in place, and we noticed and we identified the value on creating documents, on processing tenders, on doing knowledge management. And then we went from a technology push to people pulling for the solution to say, hey, how we can identify new use cases, new areas where this technology can make sense to us. And if we go into, I would say, where we are today, the real challenge is on how to support it. Is really the change management part. Is we follow the outcome approach that maybe is very well known from Proxy, from many organizations, and it's really not only creating the awareness, the desire, but also providing them the capabilities, the resources, the training to experiment, to bring this technology to the day-to-day basis, with good guardrails, with good propositions that will enable the innovation, and this is the transformation that is starting to happen.
That's really fascinating, and I love the journey from pure technology, slight focus towards business use cases, and then really the bigger change is we'll definitely come back to, by the way, in this conversation around change management, leadership, governance. Right. So Ronald, you work with SAP for many years, and now you're on the other side, on the customer side, responsible and working in the user group across the market. So I would be very curious to understand, how does really the market and how does our customers here in the Netherlands see AI?
So, talking to customers of SAP, members of the Dutch user group, yeah, AI is something that's going to be here and that's going to be transformative. The thing is, how are we going to be able to adopt it and bring it to valuable outcomes? Our members are investing in AI, investing in their people, investing in the technology. And what we now see is, okay, how do we get to that valuable outcome? Because, an investment needs to get something out of it. And I see that everybody in my community sees AI as the next wave. But it has to bring something to me as a company, to my customers, and the customers of my customers.
And I think that's a great point, right? I think we're at this inflection point now where we see the technology, we see it's proving it works, but now it's a value conversation.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah, and it really resonates with me. I think when I started 2 years ago, my manager is the CDO of Damen, and he told me the first meeting, okay, I'm very happy, very excited that you're here. I see we need to do something with AI. Have a look, right? And then just to reflect, fast forward 2 years to today. Actually, this week we had a strategy days at Damen, where the top leaders of organization were present. To put things in context, Damen is a company of around 3.2 billion revenue per year. And AI was one of the main topics in the conversation. And why? Because we are also having shift in Damen. We want to move away from shipbuilder, from a transactional company, to maritime solution provider. And that means that AI is basically the underlying digital thread there that is helping us to accelerating that process. And we had a lot of conversations, very provocative, um, you know, for example, right, the vessel is not the problem anymore, data is. And it was good to have these discussions on people having opposing views. And the conclusion is, we are in a physical world. Customers are still coming through boats, but that alone is not going to make us move forward. And there is where digitalization, there is where AI is bringing already value to our organization, not only to us, but also to our customers.
And there's two perspectives. So on the one hand, bringing value in productivity, and productivity is always a thing that we discussed. And I think productivity didn't change a lot since 2005, where software came and came and came. And I think AI can help there, but it's also facilitating a new business model. Yeah, a new perspective of being a company, not delivering boats, but being a service provider.
But I think we are definitely at that inflection point now, right? I think many of the customers I talk to definitely have embraced AI, definitely see productivity is this visible prize. But on the longer term, it is realizing that the true value from AI comes from decision compression. That we can delegate and compress decisions, all the multiples of decisions made through our processes and workflows, and ultimately transform the business model, as you say, right? And this is thought-provoking, but it's also challenging boards quite a lot, right? Because we've been here before. We've had discussions around outcome-based pricing, IoT, big data. Does that change the business model? And I think maybe for some, but not that many really. So the question is really, are we just having the conversation? Or are we ready this time to make the big leap from a shipbuilder towards really a data provider?
Yeah, we call it the maritime solution provider. And I think, I want to put things in context, right? Where we see AI facilitating the software development, right? The facilitating code. We're in a physical world. I mean, you still need floated things made out of steel. You need to weld them. That is not going to be disrupted, at least not now. But where we see the big shift is in knowledge work, right? And is in supply chains, in services. There's where you need to be able to deal with the complexity. It is also increasing on our end, because standards are getting more complex. Our products are getting more complex. We have this digital twin that is sustainability and digitalization coming together. So our products are much more complex than 20 years ago. And that's also where we want to go, because it's where we can set us apart from the competition. So this ambition of going beyond is also asking you for different capabilities. And when you start thinking about how you're future-proof, it's about your people. So when we started this journey, we had a very much human-centered approach. We said we need to build on the capabilities of our people, on giving them the tools to stay competitive, to stay ahead of what is coming, and to deal with this increasing complexity in the maritime world, but I think business as well.
Definitely. I would love to switch gears a little bit and take a gaze a little bit towards the future on where we're heading. And because so much of the work we do today and in IT, of course, is really focused around the future. But what I'm experiencing is that quite literally the development has accelerated so fast. I think we're seeing a doubling of capabilities around 7 months these days in AI. So while much of the conversation has been around infrastructure and capacities, really, I see the software and the software capabilities that's really moving fast. But that also creates quite some issues. Specifically, how do we plan and build for a future where we're going to need capabilities we barely see today? So I would love to explore that imagination gap, right? What will things look like in the next 5 to 10 years and implications of what we do today? And maybe, Ronald, for you in the VNSG network, there's so many voices and perspectives. What do you hear? How are businesses looking towards the future of AI? Are they pessimistic? Are they optimistic?
I think so. Looking at AI and the future of business, I think it's cautious optimistic.
Cautious optimistic.
So it means, yeah, our members, yeah, were quite enthusiastic about the messaging of SAP on the autonomous enterprise. The thing is, yeah, they see a future, yeah, but how to get there? And there are so many steps to take for SAP users to start really consuming, yeah, the AI functionality or business value. So there is a long road to go, and they need to start adopting. So I do believe that the time to market of SAP capabilities, yeah, is perfect. Yeah, the time to adopt in our community, it's tough. So of course they are playing with LLMs. Yeah, they are playing, but integrated in the business, they're optimized decision making, consuming assistance, agentic AI. This is something where my community needs help.
Yeah.
Because it's really changing the way people work. It's really changing their roles, perspectives. People need to understand a lot of change management has to be done. And that's the caution. Yeah. Are we there? Are we ready to really start creating value using AI? Or am I keeping my innovation at edges?
Yeah.
Because I don't want to be in the center of my business because, yeah, is it secure enough, etc.
I think there's definitely a couple of different dimensions to this discussion, right? As you said, I think one thing is the technical debt so big, or is the current enterprise platform ready for us to really introduce probabilistic reasoning, where we normally are used to having much more deterministic matching and execution? I think that's the clash also of two worlds really happening. And you also touch upon the other thing, as we move out of an IT department working with AI, is the organization ready, or how do we prepare the organization for that? And are the leadership teams and the boards ready to invest in that area, right? And Ignacio, what does the skyline look like for you on the horizon, and how you see the future here?
I'm if I look forward into the future, I was talking about knowledge work, right? And if I fast forward, I don't think AI will be running shipyards, maybe not in short notice, but really what is playing an important role is integrating all the information, integrating all the requirements into a working unit. And talking about a bit of context, right? AI is all about context. Shipbuilding is an integrating industry. So that means we purchase components, we engineer based on system requirements, and we bring them all together to both that needs to work and needs to work as a complete unit. With this complexity and landscape I was just referring before, is the challenge is there, how to deal with all this information, how to integrate it. So the access to the information shouldn't be the problem anymore.
No.
The challenge for the future will be how to have these engineers that can deal with the complexity, they can deal with people and AI systems, and fundamentally that they can judge and define what is valuable, what is right, or what is wrong. So I think if I look forward to future is, and this is also the challenge and the paradox, how do we prepare our workforce when there is no more challenge or problems on accessing to the information, but to judge on what you get from the systems?
Yeah, that's cool. So I think from the perspective, so we are concerned about data technology, but it's also the people that they are enabled to do their job in a new AI-enabled environment.
And being ready, as we talked about in the beginning, right? You have the productivity level, but it's really the next stage is about getting to experts on demand. So much knowledge in organizations are typically tacit knowledge and very much limited, especially also I would imagine in an engineering organization like Damen in individuals' heads. But now it's more important than ever that we can externalize that knowledge and get it in. So we have this expert on demand, because that is really what would allow work to flow at scale. And then, of course, I think we have to rethink the whole concept of work. Right? I think we have to rethink business processes as a concept, workflows as a concept. I think it's a concept that was really imagined for a different world where human cognitive limits were there. But now, as you said, with the full access of information, with the autonomy of decisions, we have the opportunity to really be much more intent-driven. And that puts different requirements there. So I would love to just pan to the last bit of the equation. And we talked a little bit about it, right? You mentioned the role of leadership on your board, and you talked about adoption and challenges here, because that's what we focus quite a lot on, and the role of leadership in the age of intelligence. So I'm really curious, what's the answer to what does leadership need to look like in the age of intelligence from your perspective? And maybe, Ronald, maybe from your perspective, what do you think AI adds in terms of responsibility to the role of leaders at our customers?
So you mentioned the word intent, and I think intent is the starting point for us as leaders, because we have to be very clear to our community, to our people, what is the intent of our company, our organization. So I think we have to be very sharp on that as leaders, and then focus on accountability, because AI will never be accountable. It's always going to be the people, the professionals, that we have to facilitate, enable with AI literacy, with programs, to be able to use this instrument, to become, the next level professional. And I think clear direction, clear intent, make sure that we focus on accountability, not on just follow the process, but you are bringing something to the community, to the people, or to the customer, and then make sure that it is really embedded into the capabilities of my workforce. And I think, in the VNSG, I'm really human focused, and I want everybody to develop themselves, also for a next step in their career. And AI is needed, so that's why I'm focusing a lot on literacy, make sure that people can follow this journey because it's needed.
I think that's really spot on in terms of intent, right? I think we have to be crystal clear in intent as we move forward and intelligence becomes more abundant. What will be very hard is trusted execution and intent of organization. And as leaders, I think that's more important than ever. I call it intent packets, and work packets is a way of thinking about in terms of defining not only intent, but also context and execution, but also evidence when things are good, and then, of course, defining a learning loop around it. Ignacio, how do we kind of maintain progress in our individual work and in our leadership teams with all the abundance of AI tools available? And what are the responsibilities you're seeing leaders have in this transition?
Maybe a step back, I would like to reflect on what I see in the industry. And
Yeah.
what I see in the industry is a lot of FOMO, the fear of missing out. And I think it's so important that every organization is having their own journey. And their own journey starts with supporting your people first, providing clear guidance on what to do. And this bottom-up approach that helped us so far to build our capabilities now needs to flip over and be top-down to say, what is material to us? Where do we need to focus to go from personal productivity to value creation for organizational level? That is how you prepare your organization for the future, and that's how you determine the direction. The technology is just providing you the means.
Yeah. I love that. So just rounding us out here and taking us out, any final words of advice from the two of you to other organizations embarking on the journey?
Well, if I dare to say something, start walking, start making this part of your agenda. Bring it to today. Don't wait for tomorrow. This is not something you will be able to catch up. It's about your people. It's about your processes. It's about your infrastructure. And if you don't start today, tomorrow is not going to be the problem. Maybe next month is not going to be the problem. In a year, I wonder where you're going to be.
That's the problem with exponentiality. You may not see it in the short term, but long term for sure. We typically underestimate the impact. You,
Yeah,
Ronald?
so I wanted to say the same. Start now if you didn't start yet, because innovation is going to be real if you show it, and you have to be able to show it and bring it to the broader community. And I think discussing the data quality and all those kind of things, keep doing that, but start.
Thank you so much for joining us on this episode of AI Voices. I love the conversation from the start of where we were a couple of years ago to what was happening right now at Damen Shipyards and at our Dutch user community here in the Netherlands, and also to the role of leadership and just get started, I really take from this conversation. As we further embark on this journey and transformation of our organizations, it is important that we share our stories to accelerate the scaling and the value from working with AI. This has been AI Voices, and we will return with new episodes on LinkedIn, YouTube, sap.com, and other social media. Thank you so much for viewing and listening. My name is Jesper Schleimann.